thank you for joining me for today's message. Psalm 23 is probably the best known passage from the Bible. Even many people who don't read the Bible at all can quote at least a line or two from it, if only because they've heard it so often at funerals. It's appropriately used at funerals and memorial services, but if we think of it only as a funeral text, we can miss the fact that this psalm is mostly about living. I'd like for you to listen as I recite that psalm from the New King James Version. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the ancient world, as in ours today, shepherds were herders and caretakers of sheep. But back then, about 3,000 years ago, in the time of Israel's King David, the term shepherd was also a metaphor for the role that kings were to play. Kings were to take care of their subjects, providing for them and protecting them. The problem was, many of the kings were lousy shepherds of their people, either inept or more concerned with their own glorification than for the well-being of others. Therefore, for someone in that culture to say, "The Lord is my shepherd," was similar to saying, "The Lord is my king." And the point was that God does what a king shepherd is supposed to do. The person making that declaration was stating an intention to live under God's rule. And the rest of the psalm then becomes a description of the good things that come to that person as a subject of this good king. Therefore, because the Lord is a good shepherd, and I am a member of God's flock, I shall not be in want of anything. Whatever I need will be provided for me. The references to lying down in green pastures, being led beside still waters, and fearing no evil in the valley of the shadow of death, these are poetic ways of saying that the shepherd king provides what I need to stay alive. And although we're used to hearing verse 4 in the King James Version as, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death," the Hebrew can also mean place of deep darkness. Therefore, the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible translates Psalm 24, verse 4 in this way: "Even though I walk through the darkest valley." And in that translation, the psalm becomes a statement of God's shepherding us in the difficult, troubled, and hard stretches we go through in life itself. My brother James died this past April 14th, 2021, following an excruciating and painful battle with cancer. I officiated at his graveside service just 14 days later, this past Wednesday, April 28th, on my 64th birthday. When I last saw my brother 3 days before his death, his body was a fraction of what it once was. James lay there in a rented hospital bed, little more than a skeleton with folds of skin draped over it. He could barely talk, even in a whisper, because the cancer had affected his vocal cords. When I first entered his room, my brother motioned for me with his cupped hand to come close. And as I drew my ear near his mouth so that I could hear his barely audible whispers, he spoke to me and he asked, "You've seen people in my condition a lot, haven't you?" I drew back and I nodded and I said, "Yes, James, I have." And then placing my ear close to his mouth again, he asked, "Am I dying?" Again, I drew back, looked at my brother directly in his eyes, and I said, "Yes, James, I believe you are. I don't think it will be very long now. maybe 2 or 3 days at most. My brother looked sad, realizing that the end of his earthly life was coming near to an end. And so I said, "But James, this isn't the end of your life. Your spirit, which is the essence of you, will live on. It won't be long before you'll be in that place that Jesus has prepared for you, in the presence of God and so many others who have gone before us. And you'll see Mom and Dad, and Grandma and Grandpa Carlisle, and Grandma Mullins, and so many other loved ones. There's a host of people waiting to see you, James." You see, Psalm 23 doesn't conclude with talk about the valley of the shadow of death. It concludes with the affirmation of life and goodness. So listen again as I recite verses 4 and 6 of that psalm. "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Notice that Psalm 23 doesn't conclude with death. Rather, it concludes with life. "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Through the gift of God's love and grace, as conveyed and offered through Jesus Christ, we all can live forever in that place that Jesus has prepared for us in heaven. And that's because the Lord is our good shepherd king.
The Lord is my shepherd, I'll not be in need. He lets me lie down in the pastures green. Beside the still waters he leadeth me. My soul is restored in his presence. Lie, lie, lie-dee-die. Lie-da-dee, lie-da-dee, lie-dee-die. Lie, lie, lie-dee-die. The Lord is my shepherd forever. Guides me on paths paved with righteousness. His name is revered in my faithfulness. Along paths of darkness I've nothing to fear. His rod and his staff light my way. Lie, lie, lie-dee-die. Lie-da-dee, lie-da-dee, lie-dee-die. Lie, lie, lie-dee-die. The Lord is my shepherd forever. He spreads out a table to honor me in the presence of those who are enemies. My head is anointed with richest oil. My cup overflows with God's goodness. Lie, lie, lie-dee-die. Lie-da-dee, lie-da-dee, lie-dee-die. Lie, lie, lie-dee-die. The Lord is my shepherd forever. Lie, lie, lie-dee-die. Lie-da-dee, lie-da-dee, lie-dee-die. Lie, lie, lie-dee-die. The Lord is my shepherd forever. The Lord is my shepherd forever.
This video is available because of the contributions that people like you send to support the ministry of the church family I serve. I want you to know how grateful I am for your prayers, your kind words of encouragement, and the financial gifts that are sent into the church office. Please, please know that my church family and I sincerely appreciate the generosity of your contributions that assist us in our ministry and our mission work. May God bless you today and always, and may you and I live in such a way that we prove ourselves to be a blessing to God and to others.